Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing amazing today. In this video, we're diving into the latest updates about Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. You don't want to miss this. So make sure to stay tuned till the end, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The studio lights were warmer than usual that morning, or at least that's how it felt to everyone watching. There was a hush beneath the familiar hum of cameras and quiet footsteps, a sense that something unspoken was about to unfold. Kelly Ripa sat in her chair, with the practiced poise America has known for decades, smiling as she always did, greeting the audience with that signature blend of humor and heart. But behind her bright eyes was a depth of emotion that could no longer be hidden. This was not just another episode. This was a goodbye. Mark sat beside her, steady and calm, the way he always had been. Their chemistry, effortless and intimate, had carried countless mornings, millions of laughs, and moments of shared vulnerability. But today, the laughter felt softer, the pauses longer. Today, Kelly Ripa was saying goodbye to Mark, not just as a co-host, but as a chapter of her life that had shaped her in ways words could barely hold. Kelly took a breath, the kind that comes before a leap of faith or a confession of the heart. She looked at Mark, really looked at him, and for a moment the studio disappeared. There were no cameras, no audience, no scripts. There were just two people who had walked through life together, hand in hand, through chaos and calm, success and sacrifice. When we started this, she began, her voice steady but tender. I never imagined how deeply it would change me. Her words hung in the air, fragile and sincere. She smiled, but her eyes shimmered. I thought we were just doing a show. I didn't realize we were building a family, on and off camera. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the raw honesty unfolding before them. Kelly spoke not as a television icon, but as a woman reflecting on years filled with shared mornings, whispered jokes during commercial breaks, and quiet reassurances when the world outside felt overwhelming. Mark listened, his expression soft, his presence grounding. He had always been her anchor, the calm to her spark, the balance to her boundless energy. Together, they had created something rare. A partnership rooted in trust, respect, and genuine affection. It wasn't just television magic, it was real life unfolding in real time. Kelly continued, her voice catching just slightly. There were days I didn't think I could walk into this studio. Days when life felt too heavy, and every single time, you were there. You didn't fix things. You didn't try to change me. You just showed up. She paused, swallowing emotion. That meant everything. Memories flooded the room. Years of inside jokes that only they understood, moments when laughter had turned into tears, and times when silence had spoken louder than words. Their journey together had been marked not just by success, but by resilience. They had grown together, challenged each other, and learned how to share space without losing themselves. Kelly's goodbye was not about endings alone. It was about gratitude. She spoke of early mornings and long days, of juggling careers, family, and public life under an unforgiving spotlight. She spoke of mistakes made and lessons learned, of moments when fear nearly overshadowed faith. Through it all, Mark had been her constant. You taught me how to listen, she said softly, not just to you but to myself. You reminded me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. The words resonated deeply, not just with Mark, but with everyone watching who had ever leaned on someone else to find their strength. As Kelly spoke, tears finally slipped free, tracing quiet paths down her cheeks. She didn't rush to wipe them away. This was not a moment to hide emotion. This was a moment to honor it. The audience felt it too, many wiping their own eyes, connected by the universal truth of saying goodbye to someone who mattered deeply. Mark reached for her hand, a simple gesture that said more than any speech could. In that touch was reassurance, love, and the unspoken promise that goodbye did not mean loss. It meant change, growth, a new beginning shaped by everything they had shared. Kelly smiled through her tears. This isn't the end of us, she said, almost laughing at the idea. It's just the end of this version of us, and I'm so grateful I got to live it with you. She reflected on how their partnership had redefined what teamwork looked like, not competition, but collaboration. Not perfection, but honesty. Together, they had shown audiences that real connection didn't require polish. It required presence. As the moments passed, Kelly's voice grew steadier, strengthened by the release of everything she had been holding inside. She spoke of the future with hope, even excitement, acknowledging that while goodbyes are painful, they also carry the promise of something new. "If I've learned anything," she said, "it's that endings are just invitations to grow." Mark finally spoke, his voice calm but thick with emotion. He thanked Kelly, not just for the years they had shared on screen, but for the person she was behind the scenes. He spoke of her generosity, her relentless work ethic, and her ability to make everyone feel seen. His words were quiet, but they landed with weight. Kelly listened now, tears returning, nodding gently. This was what mutual respect looked like, two people honoring each other without needing to outshine or overshadow. Their goodbye was not dramatic for the sake of spectacle. It was powerful because it was real. As the segment drew to a close, the studio filled with applause, not the loud, celebratory kind, but something deeper. It was an acknowledgement of shared history, of mornings spent together across years and lives. Viewers at home felt it too, as if they were saying goodbye to a familiar comfort, a routine that had woven itself into their own stories. Kelly took one last look around the studio. The lights, the chairs, the set that had been a second home. Then she turned back to Mark, smiling through tears. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." In that moment, the goodbye was complete, not because the words were spoken, but because the love was understood. Kelly Ripa's emotional goodbye to Mark was not about loss. It was about honoring what had been, celebrating what remained, and stepping forward with courage into the unknown. And as the cameras faded and the lights dimmed, one truth remained clear. Some connections don't end when the show does. They live on in memories, in lessons learned, and in the quiet strength that comes from having walked part of the journey together. The cameras may have faded, but the emotion in the room lingered long after the final applause. Crew members stood still for a moment, unsure whether to move or simply let the silence breathe. Kelly remained in her chair, her hand still resting in Mark's, as if releasing it too quickly might break the spell of everything they had just shared. When she finally stood, she looked lighter and heavier at the same time, relieved to have spoken her truth, yet weighed down by the finality of it. She glanced toward the audience one last time, offering a small, grateful wave. These were the faces that had grown with her, aged with her, laughed and cried with her through countless mornings. Saying goodbye to Mark also meant saying goodbye to a version of herself the audience had known so well. Backstage, away from the bright lights and polished set, Kelly's composure softened. The quiet hallways felt unfamiliar without the echo of their shared laughter. She paused near the dressing rooms, touching the wall as if to steady herself, memories rushing back in waves. There were mornings when nerves had threatened to overwhelm her, days when exhaustion nearly won. And in every memory, Mark was there, offering a joke, a look, a steady presence that said, "You've got this." "I don't know how to do this without you," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't fear speaking, it was honesty. Mark smiled gently. "You already know how," he replied. "You just forgot for a moment." His words stayed with her, settling deep. Kelly had always been strong, but strength often grows quietly in the shadow of support. For years, Mark had been that support, never demanding credit, never stepping into the spotlight for anything other than the work they shared. And now, as they stood on opposite sides of a threshold, she understood that his faith in her was the final gift he was giving. They talked for a while longer, not about the show or the future, but about small things, family dinners, missed vacations, dreams deferred and rediscovered. These were the conversations that never made it on air, the ones that mattered just as much. The goodbye became less about separation and more about acknowledgement, of growth, of change, of seasons naturally turning. As Kelly gathered her things, she took one last look at her reflection in the mirror. She didn't see the nervous young woman who had once wondered if she was enough. She saw someone shaped by years of partnership, laughter, conflict, forgiveness, and trust. Mark had been part of that transformation, and that truth would always remain. Walking out of the studio, Kelly felt the crisp air hit her face. The city moved as it always had, busy, loud, alive, unaware that something quietly significant had just ended. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and smiled. Goodbyes, she realized, are not meant to erase what came before. They are meant to honor it.